Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are coming from the NIN group. We want to explain you about the challenges of intercultural communication managing differences. Here there are 5 points. The first point is about definition of culture shock. Culture shock is an experience a person may have when one moves to a cultural environment which is different from one's own. It is also the personal disorientation a person may feel when experiencing an unfamiliar way of life due to immigration or a visit to a new country, a move between social environments, or simply transition to another type of life. Some of common problems in culture shock include feelings of rejection, homesickness, withdrawal, irritation, physical and mental fatigue, and depression. The second point is about the process of acculturation. Culture shock is the initial mental and physical stress experienced. If the amount of stress exceeds a person's tolerance level, he or she can easily become non-functional. But if the culture shock is not severe, as is usually the case, people commence a process of acculturation learning to become functional and comfortable in their new cultural setting. In the process of acculturation, there is managing culture shock and enhancing acculturation. As has been noted through previous chapters, people are moving from place to place around the world, such as for a vacation, a study program, or a business opportunity. These individuals are faced with the demanding task of learning to live in a new cultural environment, and they often encounter difficulties adapting to their host culture. The process of cultural adjustment can be lengthy, formidable task that requires attaining a large body of knowledge about the new culture. Based on Ward, Buchner, and Furnham discussion that there are four numbers of measures that can be taken to facilitate cross-cultural adjustments. The first is learn about the host culture. The second is learn about the language of the host culture. The third, guard against ethnocentrism. And the last is stay connected to your own culture. And now we move to the third point. It's about stereotyping. Stereotyping is a pervasive human activity due to the need for cognitive structure. The world is too big, too complex, and too dynamic to comprehend everything in detail. So it is to help make sense of your physical and social environment. You tend to filter, classify, and categorize in order to reduce uncertainty. Stereotypes can assume either a positive or a negative form. For example, all Asian students are hardworking, well-mannered, and intelligent is a positive stereotype, and all people who dress in good fashion as drug addicts is a negative stereotype. And then, acquiring stereotype. Acquiring stereotype is the way of how we got that stereotype. There are three ways to get it. The first, the socialization process, which begins in the home during childhood. For example, a child who ever overhears a family member say, "All those illegal immigrants are taking our jobs." And the second way is religious and social organizations. For example, by learning one specific view of religion and at the same time hearing of the evils of Islamic-based religious terrorists, children make acquired stereotypes about all Muslims. The third way, generated by media, such as movie, television, sitcoms, and others. For example, media must overrepresent boys and men as active, adventurous, powerful, sexually aggressive, and largely uninvolved in human relationships.
Okay, next I will explain about stereotypes and intercultural communication. Stereotypes become counterproductive when we place people in the wrong groups, when we incorrectly describe the group norm, when we evaluate the group rather than simply describing it, when we confuse the stereotype with the description of a particular individual, and when we fail to modify the stereotype based on our actual observation and experience. Again, next, let us examine four other ways in which stereotypes obstruct intercultural communication. For the first, stereotypes act as a type of filter, and the second, it is not the act of categorizing or classifying that creates the intercultural problems, and the third, stereotypes also hamper successful intercultural communication because this present an oversimplified, exaggerated, and overgeneralized portrait of the individual. And the fourth, stereotypes are resistance to change. How to avoiding stereotypes? To avoiding stereotypes, Ting Tome and Chung advocate learning to distinguish between inflexible stereotyping and flexible stereotyping. Inflexible stereotyping is rigid and intransigent and occurs almost automatically because the stereotypes are also deeply embedded, so usually reject information that runs counter to these inflexible categorizations. However, the employment of flexible stereotyping starts when you become aware that categorizing is a natural tendency. You become more mindful. This involves first being open-minded, receptive to new information, avoiding assigning judgmental opinions, and recognizing the intercultural interaction can produce stress and discomfort. Okay, next, I have prejudice here. Prejudice are deeply held positive or negative feelings associated with a particular group, as with stereotypes. Beliefs linked to prejudice possess certain characteristics. The first, they are directed at social groups and its members. Second, prejudice involve an emotional evaluation concerning what is good and bad, right and wrong, moral and immoral, and so forth. Okay, here there are functions of prejudice. There are four functions. For the first, the ego defensive function allows individuals to hold a prejudice while denying to themselves that they possess negative beliefs. Individuals, the lower the level of perceived prejudice, the most fundamental method of decreasing prejudice is being personally mindful. Next, regime. Regime. Regime is the belief in the inherent superiority of a particular race, and it denies the basic quality of humankind and correlates ability with physical compensation. This false belief of superiority allows one group to mistreat another group on the basis of race, like color, ancestry, national origin, or other perceived difference. And categories of regime. Regime comes in a variety of forms, some of which are almost impossible to detect, such as companies hiring practice, but other like the Ku Klux Klan activities are blatant and transparent. In broad terms, however, the different forms can be categorized as either personal or institutional. Whether intentional or innate pattern, the consequence of regime have a detrimental effect on the target group. specifically and society as a whole. The last, countering regime. View about the race are often displayed strengths, especially those learned during childhood, but there are some measures that can help reduce regime. For the first, try to be honest, and the second, object to racist jokes and insults. Third, respect freedom. And fourth, examine regime historical roots. Uh, we conclude this discussion by reminding you that the regime, stereotyping, and prejudice are pervasive because they are often acquired early in life and, like much of culture, become part of your way of seeing the world. Okay, thank you.